My name is Nora Whitaker. I'm a Major General in the United States Army, with over 20 years of service, 5 overseas deployments, and more classified citations than my family would ever bother to count. But to them, I was still just the quiet one. The one who missed birthdays. The one who never settled down. The one who chose duty over family, like it was a sin. The last time I sat across from them was Christmas years ago. My mother poured wine without asking and said, "Well, at least Lauren will be the one taking care of us in our old age." My father nodded, like that was fact, not a wound. And Lauren just smiled, that polished smile of hers, the kind that won scholarships and magazine features. I didn't respond. I didn't need to. Some battles aren't worth starting in someone else's living room. So I stopped showing up. Until the day I heard she was graduating from Princeton, summa cum laude, the youngest policy fellow to receive a global appointment before the age of 27. There'd be a crowd, a camera crew, speeches, legacy photos, the whole Whitaker machine. I went, alone, unannounced. No ribbons, no escort, just a plain black coat and the stillness I'd learned to wear like armor. They didn't know I was there. Not yet. And when they called her name on that bright May morning, with banners flying and applause rising, that's when the sky opened. And the sound of rotors shattered everything they thought they knew about me. The stone courtyard of Princeton's graduate quad looked just as it had years ago, grand, storied, soaked in ivy. Rows of folding chairs stretched across the lawn, and parents in pressed suits fanned themselves with the program booklets. I sat near the back, unnoticed, as always. My name wasn't printed anywhere. I'd arrived early, took a seat by the edge where the sunlight sliced through gaps in the awning. I wore no uniform, just a tailored black jacket over civilian slacks, collar high, hair pinned. Anonymous by design. 3 rows ahead, I spotted them. My parents, Franklin, as stiff as his pressed lapel, scanning the crowd like he was assessing shareholders. Evelyn, in ivory and pearls, dabbing her already dry cheek with a lace handkerchief. They were beaming. Lauren sat between them, her golden honor cords draped over her silk gown, her posture perfect. She always stood out, even as a baby. I heard my mother say to the couple beside her, "That one had presence." She glanced sideways. Not like some others, who chose other paths. Franklin chuckled low. "Lauren's our pride. She'll be the one taking care of us. You'll see." They hadn't seen me yet. I kept still, letting their words pass through me. 20 years of learning how to not flinch came in handy. I folded the program booklet and laid it in my lap. No mention of me. Not even in the acknowledgments. The speaker announced Lauren's name. Lauren Elise Whitaker, Master of Public Policy, Global Fellow Honors. The audience clapped. Cameras clicked. My father stood to cheer. Evelyn touched her pearls as Lauren made her way up the steps. Chin high, eyes shimmering. Then, a vibration. Low, at first. A sound just beneath the surface, like distant thunder. People looked around. The faculty on stage paused mid-handshake. The announcer stalled. And then it came hard and fast. The chop of rotor blades. My eyes rose slowly. A UH-60 Blackhawk tore through the morning sky, descending over the quad like a phantom from another world. Its shadow cut across the gowns, the ivy, the banners. Gasps. Hats blew off. A few people stumbled backward. Phones tilted up. Parents shielded their children. The helicopter hovered just above the quad before easing into a precise, slow landing in the open space behind the stage. A swirl of grass and confetti spiraled through the air as the side door opened. I stood. One step forward, then another, my coat lifted slightly in the wind. A soldier stepped out in full uniform. Dust and tension hung between us as he scanned the crowd. His gaze stopped on me. He raised his arm in salute, sharp and unmistakable. Then came the words, "General Whitaker, Washington needs you." Every neck turned. My mother's mouth parted. My father froze mid-clap. Lauren's bouquet slipped through her fingers, scattering white roses across the stage steps. The soldier spoke again, louder this time, the rotors screaming behind him. General Nora Whitaker, you're requested for immediate priority transport. I didn't look at my family. I didn't need to. I moved forward with the steadiness of someone who knew what this was, not a show, not a stunt. This was protocol. Behind me, the stunned murmurs were building. Students whispered. Faculty gaped. Phones filmed. Chairs creaked as people stood, unsure whether to clap, sit, or simply stare. I walked toward the chopper, and for the first time in decades, I knew they saw me. The air at Fort Myer had always smelled of gravel, oil, and order. I stepped onto base the next morning with no fanfare, just the echo of yesterday's chaos clinging to my boots. Inside Command Wing C, Lieutenant Colonel Reese Dalton was already waiting. He was older than when I'd last seen him, but still carried that clipped precision that earned him my trust during Operation Phoenix Flame. He stood when I entered, folder in hand, brow furrowed. "You made headlines," he said without a hint of judgment. "I didn't plan to," I replied. "I know, but you're going to want to see this." He handed me the folder. It was thicker than I expected. Inside, photocopies of contracts, authorization logs, internal Department of Defense memosol stamped with my name, my clearance, my digital ID. But not my consent. "What is this?" I asked. "Someone's been using your credentials, ma'am. Since 2016. Small procurements at first, black budget taps, logistics clearances. It flew under radar until it didn't." I flipped to the digital authorization logs, my ID codes, my clearance level, my name. The signature? Almost perfect. But I didn't sign it. Reese stepped beside me. "Last week, our financial compliance unit pinged one of the accounts. The recipient company raised a red flag during a parallel investigation." "What company?" He hesitated. "Meridian Impact LLC. I stilled. "They were flagged for overbilling diesel shipments in Djibouti. I wrote a memo on them in 2019. "I know," he said. "That memo's in the file. But someone reopened dealings with them under your ID." I stepped back, jaw tightening. "How much?" "Initial transaction. 750, zero. But it was part of a series. Multiple funds, staggered across 3 fiscal years. Total, estimated misuse upwards of 17 million. My spine stiffened. Reese reached into the folder and pulled a single page, sliding it toward me. "This account," he said, tapping it. "It was opened in 2017. Secondary beneficiary listed. Lauren Elise Whitaker." I stared at the name. The breath left my lungs like it had been yanked. Reese raised his hands. "She may not have known, but whoever created this trail, they were inside your life." I turned away, one hand gripping the windowsill. Outside, soldiers jogged across the quad. Life moved forward. But in that room, time had collapsed. "I need a lawyer," I said. Reese nodded. "I've already contacted someone. Angela Ruiz, civilian, ex-JAG, specializes in military identity theft. She's handled cases like this. Sharp as hell." "Good. Because this isn't just paperwork." He understood. "This is war." Oof. Angela arrived 2 hours later, soaked from the drizzle but all business. She peeled off her coat and laid out her briefcase like she was unpacking a surgical tray. "I've reviewed the files," she said without preamble. "This isn't just misuse, it's constructed fraud. The signature? Digitally generated. Clean, too clean. No pressure points, no pen drag. That software, possibly Signif Pro, banned for military use." She tapped the page where my signature glowed beneath the header. "This is forgery," she said. "Federal under 18 U.S. Code Section 1028. But it gets worse." She opened her laptop and pulled up a document trail Reese had retrieved. On screen, a fax from 2016, sent from a residential address in Arlington, Virginia. The sender? Franklin Whitaker. I didn't speak. I didn't blink. Angela continued. He claimed power of attorney on your behalf during overseas deployment, used your deployment to justify financial proxy status, then rerouted funds through a shell company. He said I was unreachable? I asked. She clicked again. A WAV file opened. Audio crackled. She's deployed. Doesn't need to be involved. I'm her legal proxy. She trusts me. My father's voice. Clear. Calm. Calculated. Angela paused. If we verify chain of custody, this is admissible. I want to press charges, I said. Publicly. She looked up. If you do, it won't be quiet. Your name. His name. Your career. It'll all be exposed. Then so be it. Angela gave a single nod, then added quietly. Just one thing. What? Are you ready to testify? To stand in court and say, my father forged my name? I swallowed. Yes, I said, because for too long, he used mine like it belonged to him, and I want it back. The restaurant was the kind of place where even the silverware looked rehearsed crystal chandeliers, waiters in black vests, and white linen that made you feel guilty for using a napkin. Lauren's graduation dinner was being held in the exclusive upper hall overlooking the Potomac, a private room for donors, diplomats, and the Whitaker name. I hadn't been invited. I showed up anyway. When I stepped inside, the temperature dropped by 10 degrees. Evelyn was mid-laugh when she saw me. Her smile faltered but didn't break. Nora, she said smoothly, as if I were a misplaced coat. You made it. Franklin didn't stand. He just nodded, slow and unreadable. Lauren turned, wineglass in hand. Her mouth opened slightly, surprised but not angry. Not yet. I heard there was champagne, I said, removing my coat and folding it neatly over my arm. Didn't want to miss the toast. Evelyn gestured stiffly to a seat near the end of the table. I didn't take it. Instead, I reached into my clutch and pulled out a small black velvet box. Simple. No logo. No ribbon. I slid it across the table toward Lauren. She blinked. What is this? A gift, I said. From one Whitaker to another. She opened the box slowly. Inside was a sterling silver bracelet plain except for 11 engraved characters along the inside band. 13 Bravo 62, Nora. My deployment ID. Her brow furrowed. What does that mean? A reminder, I said, that names matter, and that even when buried, some names leave fingerprints. Franklin set down his fork. This isn't the time for cryptic lectures. I turned to him. Actually, it's the perfect time. Lauren glanced between us. What's going on? I've been reviewing some old paperwork, I said. Meridian Impact ring a bell? Franklin didn't flinch. Should it? Evelyn interjected quickly. Nora, darling, we're celebrating tonight. Let's not dredge up. Dredge up what? I said, still looking at my father. Because I think it's time we did. He reached for his water glass, but his fingers trembled. Just slightly. Barely noticeable unless you'd been trained to spot it. I let silence do the rest. Oof. Back at Angela's office the next day, we stood around what we'd begun calling the war table. 2 whiteboards littered with dates, arrows, contract numbers. On the table, evidence files, chain of custody forms, server logs. We're close, she said. Deborah Chan agreed to meet. She was Meridian's accountant? I asked. Senior one. Left the firm in 2021. She kept records copies of the original faxes. Angela smiled without warmth. Including one sent from your father's office, with your forged signature already applied. Reese leaned forward. She asked Franklin at the time whether authorization should be confirmed. He told her, quote, "It's already cleared beyond your pay grade." Good, I said. She'll testify? She's scared, Angela admitted. But she's willing. Later that afternoon, in a quiet downtown conference room, Deborah Chan arrived carrying an old laptop and a stack of folders. Her hands shook, but her voice didn't. I don't know who Nora Whitaker is personally, she said, but I know someone stole her name. She laid out the fax logs, the financial entries, and the metadata traces. The dates aligned with my overseas deployment records. The documents were signed before they were dated, an old fraud trick. Angela was already building the federal complaint file. We've got 5 pillars now: forged signature, IP logs, beneficiary trails, whistleblower testimony, and deployment mismatch. I stared at the board, then stepped forward and wrote one name at the top: Franklin Whitaker. Angela exhaled. That's the final confirmation. We're ready to file. I didn't speak. I didn't smile. But deep down, I felt something shift, like a locked door, finally swinging open. The federal hearing room was colder than I expected, not by temperature, but by tone. Beige walls, frosted glass, the faint hum of fluorescent lights. No audience, just law. At the table across from me sat Franklin Whitaker, flanked by 2 attorneys in matching gray suits. His posture was perfect, polished. Lauren sat beside him, hands folded tightly in her lap, her gaze flickering between faces like she was waiting for someone to break formation. Angela Ruiz sat to my left, calm and collected. A single folder rested between us, thick with truth. The lead commissioner adjusted his microphone. This preliminary review will determine whether formal federal charges will be pursued regarding allegations of identity fraud, financial misconduct, and impersonation of classified military authority. Major General Whitaker, you may proceed. Angela stood first. Her voice was deliberate. Between 2016 and 2021, Franklin Whitaker knowingly used his daughter's name, military credentials, and security clearance to authorize a series of fraudulent contracts. These contracts resulted in the unauthorized movement of federal funds, primarily through a shell company known as Meridian Impact, LLC. She handed over Exhibit A, a digital printout of the contract metadata. It was digitally signed, Angela said, but the signature was engineered, not handwritten. The software used Signif Pro has been banned for military contracts since 2015. The commissioner nodded. Continue. Angela submitted the audio file. We all heard it. She's deployed. Doesn't need to be involved. I'm her legal proxy. She trusts me. Franklin didn't flinch, but his jaw set tighter. Angela tapped the table once. That is the defendant's voice, submitted as part of a Department of Defense audit flagged in 2017. It was never elevated. We are now elevating it. Silence. Taut and surgical. Lauren's breathing had changed. Shallow. Rigid. Her hands curled around the edge of the table. Angela pulled out the final page. This document shows a secondary beneficiary for one of the Meridian accounts. Lauren Elise Whitaker. Lauren turned sharply. What? Her voice cracked. She looked at the page. Her name typed beneath mine. Clear. Undeniable. You used me, she whispered. Franklin didn't answer. Angela spoke instead. Whether she knew or not, Mr. Whitaker positioned his daughter as both victim and shield. The money passed through accounts tied to her name. That makes her a witness and potentially more. The commissioner turned to me. General Whitaker, would you like to make a statement? I stood. I served overseas while this was happening, I said. I was in Eastern Europe, Northern Africa, Afghanistan. I returned each time to silence. No one in my family asked what I'd seen, or what I carried, but they used what I'd earned. My voice didn't shake. I came home to find debt in my name, contracts I'd never signed, and a family that spoke my name only when it was useful. Not when I needed them, only when they needed me. Lauren's eyes were on the floor now. She hadn't said another word. Angela sat again. The Defense Department has provided matching deployment logs, verifying that Major General Whitaker was not on U.S. soil during the timeframes in question. She had no access to domestic systems, no legal means to approve these transactions. The commissioner folded his hands. This session will reconvene in 72 hours for final determination. Until then, all parties are instructed not to discuss proceedings publicly. The gavel dropped with a hollow thud. As people stood, chairs scraping the floor, Franklin remained seated. He looked not at me but through me. The way a man looks at something already slipping away. Lauren turned. For the first time, her eyes met mine with superiority, not with sarcasm, but with something close to grief. She reached out and placed her hand lightly on mine. "How long have you known?" she whispered. I didn't answer. I didn't need to. Because in that moment, she understood. Some truths don't explode. They unravel quietly, and all at once. 1 week after the hearing, the Justice Department made it official. Franklin Whitaker was indicted on 4 federal counts: identity theft, impersonation of classified personnel, fraudulent misuse of military access, and financial embezzlement through government-linked shell firms. His assets, over $17 million in diversified holdings, were frozen pending review. His name was stripped from advisory boards, alumni foundations, and private equity boards across the East Coast. The man who once signed my name with confidence was now required to explain under oath why he ever thought it belonged to him. But they didn't print my name, not in the headlines. I asked Angela to keep it out. No interviews, no press conferences, no TV panels dissecting my trauma for content. I didn't want fame. I wanted silence. I wanted the record corrected. 3 days later, I stood beneath the vaulted rotunda of the Pentagon's Hall of Honor. Rows of polished shoes and full-dress uniforms lined the room. The Distinguished Service Medal was pinned above my heart, the light catching its edges like the truth itself undeniable. When I stepped to the microphone, I didn't talk about deployments, or medals, or what it cost to come home and find my name broken open like a vault. I said, "I am not the legacy of a man who used my silence for personal gain. I am the one who endured, the one who stood still when the world forgot. And today, I write my name back letter by letter onto the history they tried to erase." In the front row, Lauren sat beside Reese. She didn't cry, she didn't smile, but her eyes stayed on mine. That was enough. That night, in my office, I opened a wooden box. Inside, the medal, and an old photo of my unit Phoenix Flame, the ones who never got ceremonies, never got their names spoken out loud. I placed the medal beside them, closed the box, and breathed. Some wars aren't fought with weapons. Some victories aren't loud. But when justice lands like a helicopter in spring, even silence remembers the sound of your name.